Good morning, America. Thank you for watching Taxes Made Easy, the live or on rebroadcast. We've got a great show today. We've got some more news, but we're really going to focus today on some of the going back to the financial analysis, talking about retirement accounts, savings accounts, and how is the IRS going to treat them? Do I have to cash that out? Do I have to pay the IRS, or can I try to preserve some of those assets? So again, this is one of the big questions we get on a regular basis, and depending on your situation, you can save most of your retirement assets that you have put either in retirement accounts specifically or just you have it in different investments. So stay tuned. It's going to be a very informative session today, and some interesting news of what's happening out there. Probably we'll touch a little bit about what's going on in the DNC, even though not a lot of news came out of it last night, or a new tax policy or anything like that. So stay tuned and we'll be right back. Welcome back, everybody, and thank you again for watching Taxes Made Easy. We're going to just kind of dive into the news, and the first article that we're going to talk about is around U.S. births. So again, U.S. births is from Newsmax Health. U.S. births have fallen 17% since 2007. That's a huge number. And this is something that's concerning and affects all kinds of people. I think it was a few weeks ago, I shared an article about how hospitals were closing down labor departments, women's health and labor, where women would go to have their babies. So I'm kind of blanking on what it's called, but it's an unfortunate thing. It's with rising costs, with the insurance industry being so crazy right now, and then you add to it that women are just aren't having the same number of children. There's less of demand for hospitals to provide these services, and so if they can't make it cost effective, they're closing down their labor departments. And the concern is that this makes it harder for women, especially poorer women, including migrant women, to get the care they need. And I think everybody wants, regardless of status, we want to have healthy babies. We want to make sure that babies are born and get the neonatal or the care that they need. It just has a lot of impact throughout their economy. Why has our birth rate been falling? Well, there's a lot of ideas about that. One of the things which I think is actually a good thing, teens 15 to 19 are part of the trend, having declined by 4%, just from 22 to 23. And I think it's a good thing. We don't need teenagers having babies. 18, 19-year-olds, if they're married, whatever, if they're on their feet, that's a different trend. But again, so we dropped so last year it was 3,596. Previous year was 3,596, and the previous year it was 3,667. So dropping 70,000 births, and continuing this downward trend for people actually having babies. So not a good fact. And anytime you have a situation like that, again, Japan is going through the same thing where their birth rate has declined precipitously, and especially we struggle with Social Security, we struggle with tax base. As more and more people retire and live off their savings, that's going to really drive up the tax base, which will create an even bigger burden for those that are still here. So one of the big ways to do this is, we're going to talk a couple things. That's one of the reasons why Democrats have the border wide open, bringing no people to replace the babies that we're not having as a population. So California in particular is losing residents. This isn't anything new. pardon me, excuse me. So job growth in Arizona and Nevada is 2.3% and 3.3% respectively, whereas job growth in California is only 1.6%. So you've had a lot of influx from California to these other states, mainly due to the lower cost of living and more job opportunities. So these states are growing. California, while it's not shrinking, no, actually, I think their population did shrink. And they're starting to lose congressmen as a result. I believe they did lose one in the last census. So again, the trends are clearly seen through home buyers, the migration of home buyers leaving expensive coastal areas to less expensive areas. Again, they move to states that are nearby for the shorter move, similar landscapes and weather, so what they're used to. Home prices are a big difference here. So if you have job growth roughly in California of 1.6%, that's pretty low and well below the national average. Property taxes make a big deal. Average in Nevada, I always thought that property taxes were high. They're only average 1,369. Arizona is a bit more at 2,500. California is double that at 5,347. And part of that is due to the much higher property values, but that's only held in check by Prop 13. If they reverse that, we expect to see property taxes shoot up in California to New Jersey level property taxes. Home prices still jumping in Arizona. Nevada, they jumped up 5.8%, so now it's more expensive. Homes are more expensive in Nevada than Arizona. But again, the price continues to climb. Average home, $451,000 in Arizona. California climbed 7.6% to $856,700. So again, the California, just the people there, the money, it becomes a lot more and has become a lot more expensive. So how to address this? This is an article came out just from the news. This is a new idea being suggested in the California Senate. So in their legislature, zero down, no payment home loans for undocumented immigrants. So I really question, one, the legality of this to discriminate against residents. But why are they doing this for undocumented immigrants and not the rest of the citizens? Because if they do it for everybody, it'd be too expensive. But why single out this group for this preferential treatment? And it's a magnet. It's a huge magnet and draw to help undocumented immigrants that are replacing a lot of their population loss to the state of California to work the fields, etc. Again, immigrants work all kinds of jobs, but in particular, it's been said time and time again that they need agricultural workers to support the agriculture in California, which is declining. So the idea is that if the home is refinanced, sold, or transferred, that's when the state would get the money back, the loan amount plus 20% of any increase in value on the property. That is a sweetheart deal. That is a real sweetheart deal. Most Americans would love to do that deal. If you zero money down, no payment, home loan program. So basically the state is paying for the loan with an agreement that if it ever gets refinanced, sold, that the state will get their cut and get paid at that time. I'd take that loan in a heartbeat. Okay, so I'm misreading this a little bit. So it's a zero down, no payment home loan program. So they're saying that undocumented individuals that are here illegally aren't able to take advantage of the benefits of home ownership. Well, yeah, because they don't have the right documents, they don't have the financial proof of finances, and because they're not here legally. Now, don't get me wrong, there's plenty of people that come and work their butt off here. They create businesses, they're here for many, many years. Um, but they want access to federal funds. Again, it's Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac dominate the market. It's a problem when you're here working outside the system, which is why we need to fix our immigration system and stop the illegal immigration, in my opinion, but also make legal immigration a lot easier. But when you have people working outside the system, it hurts them. It hurts the people that they're letting come in illegally. And I think pretty much most people would be open and welcome to more legal immigration. The problem is they've amnesty after amnesty and have done almost nothing to actually secure the border. So, or very little. So, reading into the details, it looks like this is down payment assistance more than anything else. So 20% of the home's purchase price, zero down payment on the state loan, and no payments on it until the property is actually sold. So again, they're fleshing this out. And one of the concerns is what happens if they just hold on to the home forever? And why won't they just hold on to it, put into a trust, make it, stay in the family in perpetuity so they never have to pay this 20% back? Why would you? That's a huge hit if you get a home and you just hold on to it and rent it out. I mean, it really would discourage anything like that. And throwing more money into the rut. I mean, here's the problem: is that every time politicians want to fix the housing market, all it does is throw more money at the issue and cause overall housing and inflation in housing to go up dramatically, potentially in the millions annually. So it's a huge expense for the California government. And then you had 18,000 individuals applied for a $255 million loan program. 1,700 lucky winners, with everybody else paying additional costs as that additional money was thrown in the market. So this was tried before by President Bush, who loved to spend too much. They had home down payment assistance program, and again led to fueling the housing bubble and also by his quantitative easing, lowering the interest rates artificially, led to that bubble, led to a huge crash, and a lot of people getting hurt, and a huge raft of foreclosures. So, again, what does this do to actually solve the problem? Not much. It's a giveaway to a certain part of the population, and we'll probably just make things worse. So we're up against another break, and we will be back after this break. Welcome back, everybody. And again, just want to touch. Here's the problem: is that again, this is typical of politicians, both parties. George Bush did it. California's doing a similar program just for undocumented um, immigrants. It's a nice euphemism for illegal immigrants. But anyway, it's there's always a cost associated with this, and there's always a cost through the economy. So whenever you do something like that, there's no free lunch. So moving on to the next article, this is also just the news. 15 states are suing the Biden-Harris administration for enrolling non-citizens in Obamacare. So what they're doing is, so Kansas and 14 other states are suing the government, and the CMS, so the Biden-Harris administration, changed the rules. They made a tweak to allow for DACA recipients to qualify for the ACA care or the exchanges, so to get federal subsidies for insurance. Now, the interesting part about this, when it was enacted by Congress, it limited eligibility only to citizens or nationals of the United States and aliens lawfully present. That was the clear language of the statute that was passed. There was a lot of contention, and that was changed in the final version to placate some people and actually get it across the finish line. Now they're changing the clear language of the statute to from lawfully present to include DACA recipients. First step, if they could, they would include all illegal immigrants. The problem is, ACA is very expensive as it is. And by broadening who can access it, they're spending more money that we don't have. And people talk about entitlements. ACA and other things are entitlements. And it costs the federal government and state governments billions upon billions of dollars. So who's going to pick up the tab for this? Taxpayers. It's just going to add to the national debt. And so they're claiming that making this change without Congress violates the Administrative Procedures Act, and it prohibits taxpayer-funded benefits from being given to legal foreign nationals. Well, it happens all the time by our federal government, but should it is a different question. So, again, expanding that out is a concern. And one of the big arguments here that many argue, those with that criminal records at a minimum. So DACA recipients that have criminal records shouldn't be here. And nearly 80,000 that were DACA recipients had arrest records, were released in the U.S. with arrest records. So why are they here? Why are we allowing them to come into our country when they have a criminal history? That's a concern. So anyway, so again, this is another lawsuit happening in the courts, but I think it's consistently shows how we want to spend more money. We want, and again, it's election season, so a lot of this stuff is happening. Look what I've done. Look what I'm doing. But at the same time, the politicians don't consider who they're actually hurting. So I touched on this yesterday. The official numbers are supposed to come out today. And the Trump campaign was jumping on the job growth numbers that were, the truth is coming out. It's 1 million, so up to 1 million jobs previously reported didn't actually exist in the last year. So the BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, so it's the government that's actually finally revising these numbers. And they're dramatically revising the job growth figures for the first quarter of 2024 and getting rid of up to 1 million jobs. I mean, this is concerning. We've been heading to an election. There are a lot of accusations or concerns that we haven't had good economic numbers, that the numbers have been, for inflation. Anybody buy the official inflation numbers? I've got a bridge to sell you. Just go to the grocery store. It's nuts. Um, my wife and I looked at the ads just yesterday. We're just like, there's very little pork chops on sale. That's the only thing that's really a good sale this week. There's some fruit here and there, but it really is a different. It's a different market today, and so it's a concern, and it makes it harder and harder for families to buy groceries and feed their families with the rise in inflation going on. Not to mention the increase in housing that we just talked about, 7.6% in California, and still rising elsewhere, by dramatic numbers. So this will result in this revision potentially cut like 600,000 jobs. So I keep seeing this million job number and 600,000. I guess we know when they actually come out with the numbers. But roughly 50,000 fewer jobs each month. And the numbers have not been great as it was. So that's 50,000 over a year that they're going to be cutting. So they're not saying it's a simple adjustment. I mean, this is a huge adjustment over a year. The numbers being this big and going back, this is pretty substantial. And of course, the Trump administration or Trump campaign is jumping on it, saying it's election interference, cooking the books like this, and them acknowledging right before an election, oh, by the way, up to 1 million jobs just weren't there that we've been reporting this whole time. So one of the key facts that I want to really focus on is this number. 4.4% unemployment. This is the real number. This is the highest going back to 2014. So it's hard to trust the government numbers. And the election interference, all that aside, what is really happening in our economy? And the problem is that the government has not been giving us good numbers. And for it to jump, first of all, it went from 3.9% maybe to 4.1%. Now it's jumping to 4.4%. We're back in 2014, area where the government definitely was still struggling. It was in a recession, and that's where our unemployment numbers are. That is the clearest indication of what's actually going on. So people looking at the economy and the government and the Biden administration, they at the DNC convention, that's one of the consistent messages that's been out there is like, look, we have a good economy, we have strong numbers. That's not reality. And huge revisions like this, coming directly from the government, bear that out. People are struggling, people are hurting. So they on one hand, they claim the economy is great, but then they had someone else, Bernie Sanders, actually, in his speech, talking about how most Americans are living paycheck to paycheck. They're struggling and, struggling to afford rent. Bankruptcies are up right now. Or not bankruptcies, foreclosures also are climbing right now. And their solution is tax the rich. So it really is concerning where we're going and having people, all the really is gaslighting to push that we have a much better economy than we do. So Chuck Schumer spoke at the DNC, and one of his big things, again, this is going to be a huge fight, the Trump tax cuts. Now, one of the things he did was he capped the SALT taxes, and this is one way to pay for it. So before the Trump the TCJA, the Trump tax cuts, you were able to write off your state taxes, which was a huge benefit for high tax states like New York, California, Illinois, New Jersey, where they had very high personal taxes, very high property taxes. And by allowing that, those state and local tax deductions on their federal taxes, in essence, states with lower taxes were subsidizing the higher state taxes. And so instead of feeling the full cost of state taxes, red states or more conservative states with lower taxes, everybody from the rest of the country has been paying more into the system to subsidize high tax states. That I have a huge problem with that. If your state wants to have higher taxes, great. People should feel it. The problem with salt taxes, state and local taxes, is that it takes that sting away and passes the burden onto the federal budget, which everybody else has to pay. So it's one of the ways that, again, really raised revenues here. So this is tax giveaway to expensive blue states with higher state and local taxes. But again, it's passing the buck on to everybody else. So Chuck Schumer being from New York, they hate this cap on salt tax to $10,000 a year, and they want to get rid of it because it primarily benefits high tax states that are blue states. So again, I have a problem with this. If someone wants to have and have higher taxes for the benefit of the public, or for the programs that they want to have in their state, great. That's the point of federalism, is that you can do what you want in your state, experiment within reason, and live with the consequences, good or bad. But passing those consequences and the cost onto everybody else in the federal government, in the federal budget, and adding to the national debt, that to me really smacks of unfairness, and it's these high tax blue states really passing the buck on for their financial decisions or spendthrift ways. So when California passes this, if they pass this bill, probably will pass in California, to give zero payments, zero cost, 20% loans, so illegal immigrants can purchase homes with a down payment. It's a free down payment. And on $1 million home, that's roughly $200,000. There's a cost there. And for that cost to be passed on as they spend more to the federal government because their state taxes have to be higher, I think that's not fair. That's again my opinion, but I think this is something that Democrats absolutely want to get rid of so that they can spend more and pass it on to the federal government. And then again, it's just that's a constant thing that's going on that the Democrats want to cut, they want to get rid of. So last article here, it really is just a summary of this from CNBC. Here's how the election could affect your taxes, and it's just a summary of a lot of things that we've been talking about. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Do you extend the Trump cuts or tax cuts, or do you get rid of them? Trump wants to keep them. The Democrats want to get rid of them for anybody earning over $400,000. We've heard that line before. The IRS isn't going to go after anybody making less than $400,000. They obviously do, and they've done it with gusto. So with a lot of energy. Proposed tax increases, tax rate jumping up, and Trump is calling for sweeping tariffs to pay for a lot of his proposed spending and tax cuts. So do we need to increase levy on Chinese goods? Sure, I'm all for that. President Biden actually proposed going to 80% to outdo Trump. So is that really going to happen? Who knows? But both parties have suggested levies on Chinese goods. But Trump also proposed a baseline 10% tariff across the board. One of the key criticisms of that is that it can cost consumers more, as it costs them more um, to purchase foreign goods. So again, what would actually get passed? Another question. They both approach for the child tax credit expansion. So really, and then there's the tip. So in many ways, the Harris campaign, and again, they're rewriting to be fair to them, they are coming up with these ideas and coming out with their agenda after Trump, because she wasn't the candidate. President Biden was, but a lot of these are very similar to or mirror what the Republicans have proposed. But the big difference is that Trump would raise taxes through tariffs, whereas the Harris campaign would tax the rich, tax corporations, and tax growth. So really, who does that affect? People investing in the economy, people with 401ks, people with IRAs, people saving for their future. It's going to hurt most Americans that are trying to do the right thing. And so this is something both parties are guilty of. We don't reward saving. We don't reward people actually saving for their future, for their retirement. There are programs out there, but a lot of these ideas and the massive spending that we have going on, inflation is a form of taxation. It eats away at savings, and by printing money and spending money like crazy, the federal government is attacking savings, making it harder to save, harder to make to prepare for the future. And the amazing for that is you invest, you have to get a much higher rate of interest just to stay ahead of inflation. And with interest rates higher, anybody that owes debt gets a double whammy, because it helps if you have a fixed interest rate, but ongoing variable rates are what are shooting up and really hurting people, especially with credit cards. Credit card interest rates are higher than ever right now. Probably not higher than they've ever been, but the last few years they're definitely much higher due to the Fed rate going up. And now the Fed's cutting between a rock and a hard spot. If they cut rates, is that going to spike inflation? But with the economic numbers, the unemployment numbers shooting up now that we have real numbers, I don't think they have a choice but to cut rates. So again, the Fed rate is just a little lever on the big economy, and the real problem here is we're spending, and this little lever is going to become useless in a very short amount of time if we don't get our fiscal house in order. So moving to the topic, sorry, I can talk about that way too much. Speaking of assets and investments, that's one of the things what we really want to focus on today. And we focus on how to protect your assets, how to protect your investments. And I want to make a distinction here. Pardon me. There's a huge difference between retirement accounts and just normal investments. So the way the IRS uses it, and sometimes the words I use can be confusing, and I want to clarify this to start before we head into the next break. You have retirement accounts that have been labeled retirement accounts, and they've been given certain tax benefits and advantages. So let's say a 401k, an IRA, a Roth IRA, where you can save money either now or in the future on taxes by using these programs. You eventually will get taxed one way or another. And then you have investments for your retirement, stocks, bonds, CDs, investments in the stock market, whatever, and those are treated very differently. And we'll get into that more after the break. Welcome back, everybody. So continue the conversation about retirement assets. Just keep in mind that distinction between what's in a 401k, IRA, and Roth IRA. So programs laid out. There's plenty of others, 427Bs, there's, or 403Bs for college. There's quite a few other products that have been put out there that people can have tax savings, put things away for college, other uses that are protected by tax law. Or get certain benefits if you follow the rules and it's a way to encourage investing. Now, with these investments, and again, this is it's a positive thing for people to save money, but if you take the money out, it can really hurt you. How can it hurt you? First of all, it can hurt you through increased taxes. When people take a big chunk of money out of their retirement, etc., it absolutely hurts them. Second of all, if you have a bunch of money and you're not retirement age, so I'm going to focus on not people that aren't of retirement age. The IRS treats it as cash. Hey, we don't care that you're retiring in 3 years. You can access our 401k. You can access these kinds of funds. Give it to us. Now, the difference here is, or one thing that is different is that if you are an employee, a state employee, or if you're a union member, if you have some kind of pension that you can't access. So sometimes older companies, or older employees will still have a pension, but especially if you pay into a state retirement fund or something like that, the IRS will leave that alone, especially if those payments are mandatory or if you can't access it until such an age. So if you have some kind of retirement system where you can't access the funds, they haven't vested, then you don't have to worry about it. Now, aside from whether or not it's vested or not, if you can't access it legally, they can't access it. The IRS cannot ask you to get into it. So I've seen plans that just haven't vested, or you don't have any rights to the retirement accounts for so many years. That can also be used to protect your assets, and you don't have to liquidate those assets to pay off IRS tax debt. One of the key things, and this is something that we help people do all the time, if you have a 401k and you're still with the original, so if you have a 401k and you leave that employer, there's no protections unless you roll it over to a new 401k with your current employer. Now, if you have a 401k and you go out and take a loan out against it, you want to talk to your HR department, because every 401k can be a little different. Sometimes you can only take one loan out. Sometimes you can take 2 loans out. Usually 2 is the maximum, but check with your HR department and see how many loans you can take out on a 401k. So if you take out a loan on your 401k, let's say you have $100,000 and you take a $20,000 loan out on it, and you can only take 1 loan, the IRS cannot access that until that loan is paid off. So you want to get a nice long term on that loan and then use that money for something that is an allowable expense. Don't go to Vegas with it. Don't go on a vacation to Hawaii. Don't give it away. You want to use that for maybe some necessary repairs around your home, for some dental work that you need, if you've had a health procedure that you've needed. There are ways to use that money for allowable expenses. And the key thing is you want to set this up in a way that you can share all of it with the IRS. There's no hiding going on here. You're using the IRS rules in your benefit, and you can lock up that 401k as a retirement asset. Unfortunately, that only works for 401ks, doesn't work for IRAs, Roth IRAs, anything like that. If you have money sitting there, the IRS doesn't care that there's a penalty to withdraw. The IRS doesn't care that it's going to create another tax debt if you take that money out. So that's just a careful consideration of where is my money and how the IRS is going to treat it. So, for example, if you're doing an installment agreement, if you have to present financial information, they could very well say, hey, you have this pile of cash, pay us, pay your taxes. Now, there is an advantage to paying off taxes if you're not going to get hit with a massive penalty. And sometimes you can set up an installment agreement and say, hey, I'm going to pay it off for 4 years. I'm going to pay the thing and pay the whole tax debt off. Just give me a little bit of time. Sometimes they'll work with you even though you have retirement assets like that. But there's no rule that they have to do that. So a lot of that is using some negotiating and making sure you're talking to someone that's a little more flexible over there at the IRS. Sometimes it's hard to find those people. Once you retire, the ballgame changes, and changes in a dramatic way. So if you can be fully retired because of a disability, or if you're unable to work, something happened, you just can't work, or if you are of retirement age. So if you're retirement age and you retire, it's up to you how long you stay in retirement, or if you pick up part-time work. The IRS can be very flexible about that. And I've known plenty of people that were 67, 70 even, that were still working. They're like, I've got to work to pay off this tax debt. I'm like, well, not quite. The IRS can't ask you to continue working once you're of retirement age. And if you can retire and breathe easy, maybe that's what you need to do. So you have these cash assets in either a formal government retirement account or just accounts that you have for your retirement. You take all of these investments that you have, and once you hit retirement age, what you can do is start drawing off of that. So you have an asset, and the way to protect it is to change its characterization. So change how the IRS is going to look at it. So once you start drawing off of it, it's going to show an income stream that will count as an income source on your tax return. Not on your tax return, but on your financial statement, which is the 433A or 433F, depending on what you're using. So let's say someone has $600,000 in retirement assets, either in a 401k or invested in the market, CDs, whatever. And now they start taking 500, 1,000. You can really pick the number that you're going to take monthly from that. But you're using that, and the idea is to use that to supplement your decreased income now that you've retired. Maybe you're getting Social Security, whatever, but if you retire, and you could be working part-time still, but you have various sources of income to support yourself in retirement, the IRS, per their rules, now will look at that $600,000 as an income stream. It's like a rental property. If you have a rental property, they usually will leave the rental property alone because it's creating income to support the individual. So it becomes an income-producing asset, and they're supposed to look at the flow of income that you're getting from that, not the asset itself. So it's a great way to protect assets. If you're young and you're not close to retirement, it's not going to help you. But if you are older and approaching retirement age or in retirement age, it's a great way to save your retirement assets and help you retire in comfort, even though there's this tax debt. Now, it's the same for states. They can be a little more, again, part of it, it depends on if it's in an annuity or if it's in something that's locked up. It looks better if you have $200,000 cash sitting in your bank account. They see that as cash. Give us the money. It's not something that really can be hid very well. So sometimes you want to take that money, and I've had plenty of people I've connected with financial advisors and say, hey, we want to invest this. I had one client that literally had $200,000 in a mattress. First of all, you're losing value due to inflation. You want to invest those funds. You want to start getting a return on your investment. And if nothing else, keep up with inflation, but ideally beat it and start getting a return on your investment. And historically, the stock market has beat inflation with additional returns on top of it. So that's why you want to invest your money. You want to typically do it through an investor unless you really know what you're doing yourself. or not an investor, but a financial planner, someone that can sit down and explain how to protect your assets and what kind of growth or risk that you want to expose yourself to in the market. And there are good annuities out there. They're not as profitable as they used to be due to inflation, but there are ones that will still beat inflation and give you a decent rate of return and protect your money. The closer you are to retirement, the more conservative you want your investments to be. So that is the best way to protect your assets once you're in retirement, or if you're close to getting to retiring. Sometimes we can just run out the clock a little bit, play some stretch things out. Normally we try not to do that. We try to move quickly and resolve cases, but there are plenty of cases where a few months can make a huge difference in someone's case. And we can usually stretch it out with the IRS or the states, depending on how far along the collections path you are. So again, we've been able to do great things, helping to save people tons of money, hundreds of thousands of dollars in their retirement assets, and giving them, give people the peace of mind they need to retire in comfort and not have to retire as a pauper. True story, one case, this gal owed around $100,000. We were going to do a $20 offer, wipe it all out. She got about $300,000 in inheritance from her mother that passed away. But she's looking at, she has $300,000. We helped her purchase a home, used as a down payment on a home, and avoided creating equity there. And the IRS will allow that. So will the states. And then she took the rest of it and put it into an investment account for her in her retirement. And then she started drawing off of it monthly. And she still got a $20 offer, even though she got $300,000. It's all how you do it. It's all using the IRS rules and regulations, and the states for that matter as well. And each state is different. So again, not all states are going to follow those, but in general, they follow the same principles when it comes to retirement assets. And if you're in retirement, you can still save and preserve your nest egg for retirement. Their general goal is to not take retirees and take all of their assets and leave them on the street. If you're not retired, they don't really care. But again, that's a big concern. And helping people save their assets and protect them is a big, that's one of the main things that we do. I want to talk about vehicles today, but I talked a little bit long about the news today. But we're really going to talk about how to protect your vehicles. The IRS will almost never seize retirement assets. It takes a legal order. It's a pain for them. Same thing with vehicles. They will seize vehicles, and they can, but you have to ignore them. You have to do everything wrong for quite some time to get to the point where they're getting ready to repossess vehicles or to seize them and sell them in auction. And yes, the IRS does do it on a regular basis because people blow them off, ignore them, and don't get their accounts taken care of. Almost never happens to my clients. I had one guy that was on the verge of doing it. He had played with the IRS. We were for quite a few years. And when we were hired on, we were the fourth law firm or tax debt resolution firm that he had hired. And he had already gone. They already had a legal order coming down from the attorneys. And the guy owned a car lot. So he had plenty of vehicles to seize. They weren't even they were there on consignment. And no, he had not provided that information to the IRS revenue officer. So, yeah, that was too late. We couldn't save him. But again, I told him, don't pay us. Go hire a bankruptcy attorney. And he did, which was a lot more expensive than hiring us. So if you have questions, again, give us a call, 520-485-7371. All these shows are being posted on guardiantaxlaw.com. You can go there, click on a YouTube link, and they're all on our YouTube channel. And that's the easiest way to find us on YouTube and go through all of these shows as they get posted. And if you have questions about your specific situation, you can always call us for a free consultation and go over your rights and options and how we can best help you. So Tomorrow we're going to dive into vehicles, other assets, and really kind of hammer home on how to preserve your assets, protect them, even though tax debts, you owe tax debt. It happens. Sometimes it's your own fault, but a lot of times life just happens, and you have rights. You have rights and options in dealing with your taxes. When I explain that to people and go over their options, it's like a huge burden being released. Find that peace of mind, get the help you need, and believe it or not, there is plenty of help out there. So have a great day, and we will see you tomorrow.